However, one scouting party brought good news. We'd passed north of the ruins without knowing it. Moving in a southwesterly direction, they had soon found Nia. But it was only on the fourth day after leaving Minfang that we finally arrived. The stupa, or Buddhist tower, was 6 meters high or 18 feet, built of sun-dried bricks, and showed evidence of having been plundered by robbers. The Nia ruins cover an area 20 kilometers or 12 miles north to south by 10 kilometers or 6 miles east to west, centered at this stupa. We had already wasted a whole day, so the cameramen concentrated on 4 groups of ruins nearest the stupa. We made a start at one of these that lay about 1.5 kilometers or a mile northwest of the stupa. There were large wooden frames that looked like the remains of enormous rooms. Measuring, we found that each was about 8 meters square or 25 feet. When we compared what we were looking at with Stein's diagrams, we realized we were in the group of ruins he had called N1. About 1 kilometer, or half a mile further northwest, was another group Stein called N2. One big building had perhaps been some sort of city hall, and it had a smaller house next to it with an enclosure for goats. People of many different occupations, officials, farmers and others, had all lived together here. We had the uneasy feeling that, even after more than a dozen centuries, the real owners might suddenly appear again. Beginning with Stein, explorers from many parts of the world have excavated here to try to find out more about the lives of the people of Nia. This beautiful chair is carved with designs typical of the Western land style. This tiny Buddhist image is small enough to hold in your hand. You can find traces of Buddhism everywhere. Documents found here, in an ancient Indian language written in Kharoshthi characters, have thrown some light on the old kingdom of Lo Lan. The king, who was really a sort of emperor, was the ultimate ruler whose representatives could be found at many of the oases of the kingdom. It's clear there must have been a well-developed central administrative system. About 3 kilometers or 2 miles south of the stupa, there was a great house which belonged to the local chief, who was appointed by the king of Lo Lan and who was called Choboji. The Choboji must have been a very busy man. We know he had to collect the taxes and administer the region, to supervise the passage of travelers along the Silk Road, to witness the adoption of children, and to act as a sort of marriage counselor. Many people must have come to his great house, which was more like a small palace. It occupied an area of about 700 square meters or 7,000 square feet and had a huge reception room, more than 70 square meters or 700 square feet in size, strongly built with solid pillars. Stein said that the houses of Nia were well built and that they were very large. The famous Sino-Kharoshthi coins were in use in Nia. They had Chinese characters on one side and Kharoshthi writing on the other. Then suddenly, in the middle of the 4th century AD, Nia disappears from view. Nothing is known about its collapse. Perhaps as the Nia River gradually dried up and the desert advanced, the people had to trek south to find the necessities of life. Drought must have forced them to leave the country they'd inhabited for so long and to move away in search of water. On the evening of the second day at the ruins, the weather suddenly changed. It started with a few tiny whirlwinds, and then the wind rose and made the sand dance. The camels were now very tired. They'd endured many days with an air temperature of over 40 degrees Celsius, 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and a ground temperature of almost 50 degrees Celsius, 120 degrees Fahrenheit. They'd reached the limit of their endurance and began noisily to call for water. We gave them most of what we had left. Now the long stay in the desert had exhausted us too. So we changed our plans. The caravan master decided it was a time to ignore the danger of night travel. We'd leave Nia at midnight. He warned us, but don't fall asleep. Anyone who falls off his camel will be left behind. The Nia ruins disappeared rapidly into the darkness of the moonless desert night.